Every season there are dozens of new series coming out. It can be hard and time consuming to check out each one. So that's why in this video I ranked the first episode of every new anime this season. Clever Tis. Not gonna lie, I was gladly surprised by how good this was. I mean, to begin with, the first episode was 40 minutes long, most probably inspired by Oshinoko, but this is definitely welcome. 20 minutes just isn't enough time to introduce the world, characters, and plot. So usually first episodes fail at one of these things, but by stretching the first episode into the length of 2 episodes, it becomes a whole lot easier to fit all three of these aspects. And man, does this show do it well. So, the episode begins with a flashback, introducing what appears to be our MC, who, might I add, is female. Now I know, having a female lead within an action genre is enough to kill the average Asmin viewer, but for the people who have seen the light and are believers in the Church of Mau Mau, this is a welcome change. Assuming they don't destroy the character with fan service. But anyways, this flashback sequence does a fantastic job at dropping some exposition in a natural way, because the viewer is kind of like a child who's probably asking the exact same questions as this blonde girl. So what we find out, not only in this exposition drop, but within the whole episode, is that there's a couple of different kingdoms of humanoids, or humans, who take up the land shown in the map. The dark area are ruled by these things called dark beasts, with 5 bigger beasts seeming to be the leaders. The only weapons that are able to harm the beasts are those made by one specific kingdom using a technique that is only passed down in the royal family. So with that out of the way, let's join back with the blonde hair girl and well, I guess it's that kind of series where we basically follow the monsters and see how humanities are actually the monsters. Oh, hold on, scratch that. It's actually a story where a monster sees the good in humanity by raising a baby. This is definitely a must watch, going in S tier. Detectives these days are crazy. First episode presents an interesting plot for the show, basically being about some former famous detective losing his stride by getting unwilling help from Youngblood. Unfortunately, this is a comedy anime. Now, I'm not saying I hate comedy. In fact, it's one of my favorite genres, but damn! Anime comedy sucks, and this show makes no efforts in trying to change that. It's your stock standard misunderstanding coupled with extreme violence with a tinge of borderline pedophilic jokes. Like, there's only so many times I can find a 30-something-year-old perving on a high school girl funny. The show isn't outrageously bad, but I hated getting through just 20 minutes of it. D tier. I couldn't really get much of a feel for how the series will turn out. All the episode did was introduce a generic fantasy world with demons, elves, dwarves, you name it. The MC defeats the demon lord after losing all his party members, but just as he's about to bleed out, he touches a magical rod transporting him into the past. I mean, at least it's not an isekai, but it just feels like a bland regression story. I don't know, maybe there's a twist introduced in the later episodes, but I have absolutely no urge to find out. The only thing to catch my eye was a tsundere, but you can get a better written one in a more interesting story. The fragrant flowers bloom with dignity. Your typical romance where the girl falls for a tough looking dude who everyone thinks is a delinquent but is actually really sweet. Although, this time told from the male perspective. This singular change really makes the anime stand out. Like seeing the guy get shocked and flustered from a girl offering him a cake was really heartwarming. It had me giggling like a middle school girl. The warmth of the scene is only amplified by the surrounding context. Basically, we are told that the MC goes to a public all boys school seen as a place for delinquents. Ironically, the school is right next to a private, regal all-girls school. This is the taste for good old classism, as the girls from the private school treat their neighbors as nothing more as pigs. Now this is a bit of a dangerous concept, as I'm sure it's probably going to push some edgy 14-year-old down the Andrew Tate hole. Yet, this is the only fault I can give the anime, and it isn't even its fault, so S tier. The Water Magician. Despite how short the name is, this is an isekai. Yet at least from the first episode, it didn't feel like an isekai. Like, I don't mean it's one of those fancy shows where they just slap isekai on to get views, but what I mean is it doesn't feel as tropey as your usual isekai. This is especially odd as there isn't any weird twist like got isekai with a smartphone or got isekai as a Funko Pop. It's just as simple as I died and got isekai to a magical fantasy world. There isn't even any mention of a demon lord to defeat. But if the show's so generic, why do I say it's not like the other thousands of isekai with more goofy gimmicks? Well, I think it's because it takes the pure core of an isekai and does it extremely well. Now I know I've only watched the first episode, but I feel the potential with this one. For starters, the magic system is dead simple, like our MC can control water, and not in a creative way like in Avatar, but your generic water from nowhere telekinesis. Yet, how he uses it is stupidly creative. I mean, look at how he turns water into an ice in order to start a fire by magnifying the sun. Or here, where he pressurizes water to cut a rock. Or here, where he creates mini ice walls to block attacks. This is the shit I'm looking for in isekai. Someone coming from our world and just fucking around with the new stuff in the fantasy world. Easy A tier. Welcome to the Outcast Restaurant. This one is one of those newer fantasy shows where the MC gets kicked out of the party and does their own thing. This is just some fancy way of having a fantasy slice of life. So our main character gets kicked out by the snarky party leader on the grounds that the party does not need a level 99 chef. The MC then decides to start the restaurant. Why this wasn't a level 99 chef's first idea is anyone's guess. I'm frankly shocked that the title doesn't try to explain this. Perhaps the world is healing from the scars left by light novels. The first episode did a really good job at introducing the characters and hinting at some bigger plot points for later in the series, all without a narrator reading off exposition while static images move across the screen. With that being said, it still has fallen into your usual fantasy anime pitfalls, mainly the fan service. Personally, I'm not one to cry about some questionable female armor, but there's this one fairly emotional scene that is hard to take serious when a character's tits are almost falling out. But other than that minor nitpick, I think the show is probably going to do good. A simple cooking show featuring a father-daughter-esque relationship. Another gripe I have is unfortunately the MC's food does not seem to have the orgasmic power of my goat Soma, but it'll do. B tier. Omnia Kaiten Rebirth. This show follows our MC, who similar to the average Reeb, has dreamt of their waifu so much that they have deluded themselves into believing she's real. Except, after a close encounter with Chakun, he gets transported to another world where he finds his waifu. So yes, this is an isekai. But as the short and non-descriptive name would suggest, this is in fact not complete slop. For one, the other world isn't just medieval Europe with some tacked-on video game system. Rather, it takes place in medieval Asia, where the video game system isn't actually just high-tech that is a part of the world. Meaning, I finally found a sci-fi isekai. Getting into the actual episode, it does a pretty good job at introducing our main character and his obligatory overpowered ability, as well as introducing the beauty and fascinating world he finds himself in, where rather than spells and swords you're used to, they have full-blown mecha fights. Okay, so this is a fantasy sci-fi mecha isekai taking place in ancient Asia with an added surprise at the end of the episode. There has to be a catch. Unfortunately, the monsters and mechas are CGI, but I will give the studio props as the CGI is not that bad, but it's probably a turn-off for some people, especially since it isn't anywhere near Studio Orange. What might be another turn-off for some is the main character. He is the hard-headed type who's probably going to be screaming constantly. But despite those flaws, I see potential. A tier. Jigoku Sensei Nube. So this is a revival, reboot, redo of an anime long before my time. And you can tell, but not in a bad way. It's kind of refreshing seeing the older style of an anime featuring the infamous bug guys, but with a more modern look. Unfortunately, the animation has nothing out of the ordinary to dissect, so let's get to the story. We follow the titular character Nube get hired as a teacher, not only responsible for torturing children, but also exercising spirits, as he is the only psychic teacher. Why the hell he decides to be a teacher while having a little demon in his hand vexes me. But anyways, looking at the first episode, I'm going to take a guess that this is going to be an episodic monster of the week with a bit of overarching plot sprinkled in type of show. It gave me the vibes of later seasons of Adventure Time and regular show. Unfortunately, as this is based on an older property, anything Yu does has already been copied to an oblivion, so I really could not tell you of anything unique it does. But I'll still give it a B tier. Apocalypse Bringer Mangara, World Conquest starts with a civilization of ruin. As the long name would suggest, this is an isekai. Unlike other isekais this season, this one is not good at all. I mean, it has an interesting concept where the MC is isekai into a civ game, but it's written with all the worst characteristics of an isekai. Black hair bland MC, girl who's completely obedient to him, overpowered cheat, and absolutely horrendous dialogue with huge exposition dumps. D tier. Secrets of the Silent Witch. What if one of the greatest mages of our time was just Bocce? That's basically the main joke of the anime. We are introduced to a mage who is part of the top 7 mages of the country. Her greatest ability, being able to cast spells without chance, a feat that was thought to be impossible. It turns out she does the impossible due to her social anxiety stopping her from speaking in front of others. So yeah, the MC is a complete girl failure and top tier waifu material. That's not what fascinates me most about the first episode. What's far more interesting is how the first episode spends most of its time with one person talking and giving what is essentially a long exposition dump. Yet, it doesn't feel like that. I don't know, somehow, this anime made a scene of someone just talking more interesting than whole isekais. This alone makes it worth the watch. Definitely an A tier. Token Anki. I won't lie, I went in expecting some boring generic battle shonen. I was severely wrong. I think this might be one of the best first episodes I have watched in a while. Within a singular episode, I've been introduced to the world, the MC's personality, and what would be their motives. To start off, the episode does give an exposition dump, but I'll allow it as they switched up the animation for the B-roll. Basically, there are Onis that are some type of monster. Some guy, Momotaro, got really good at killing them. He ends up starting a multi-generational war of Onis against the Momotaro family. Our MC is an Oni raised by a former member of the Momotaro family. This alone is an interesting concept, which is only added to by ending the episode with the MC's father dying, meaning this is probably going to be a revenge story. Revenge stories being renowned for their action, combined with the amazing action scenes present in the first episode, I know this is going to be an A tier. Necronomico and the Cosmic Horror Show. I thought the show is going to be an explanation of up-and-coming content creators. Turns out it's about the fate of humanity being in the hands of content creators. This really is a horror show. So we find out our MC is a small-time streamer with only 3,000 subscribers. Holy shit, I wish I had those numbers. Man, please hit the subscribe button to help a brother out. But anyways, we found out that many streamers have been entering comas without explanation. One of these streamers is the MC's roommate, and seems to be the one keeping both of them from being homeless. But like for the MC, she gets an invitation to test some VR experience and stands a chance to win 100,000 yen. This is where the anime piqued my interest, as when they entered the game, they actually look like video game characters. I really hope the anime has more of these 2D scenes. Anyways, after narrowly winning, we find out those who lose the game lose their sanity, and the people running the game are some kind of cosmic evil gods. So anyways, I'm thinking this is an S tier. There's no freaking way I'll be a lover. This is no mere romance anime. This is a goddamn real. Let's flip and go. I love lesbian necks and girls kissing. Holy peak. Sorry for that. I just really get passionate about peak genres. But moving past that, the episode begins with a confession. Ren's girlfriend could never. It's already at a great start. After the confession, we get a flashback and a bit of context. The MC spent their whole of middle school as a loner, but decides to turn things around for high school. Part of this was making friends with the supermodel of her class, Mai. Unfortunately, there's only so much an introvert can exert themselves. This especially gets tested when the next day, after Mai had saved her life, she decides to confess to our introverted MC. Somehow, the class supermodel is rejected, and we witness what was almost the biggest fumble in Yuri. Fortunately, a deal is made, where they'll alternate between friends and lovers. My reaction should give you a hint of where this is going. The summer Hikari died. I already read some of the first chapters of the manga, but not even that could prepare me for the bone-chilling and eerie atmosphere the anime created. In the first episode, we found out our MC's best friend, Hikari, went missing in the mountain for a week before being found. Although, the MC quickly realizes something is up. This isn't his best friend. It's some creature puppeteering his best friend's corpse. Yet, he doesn't reject it, as if he did, he would have to face the truth. His best friend really is dead. Plus, this thing has the memories of his best friend and looks exactly like him, so what's the worst that can happen? My little synopsis does not do the episode justice. The animators did an excellent job at expressing the emotions of the characters in ways I could never put to paper. Just go watch it. S tier. Dealing with the Macedonia sisters is a breeze. This is a bit of a weird anime. The basic premise is the MC is a mediocre guy who is the son of some prodigy actor. Unfortunately, she dies, with her last wish being the hope her son can make a family she couldn't. So a friend of her mother decides to adopt him, and he ends up living with 3 of his school's top students, who all happen to be cute girls. This is the plot for a harem anime, no doubt about it. Yet, watching the episode, the anime gave me the vibe that this might just be the guy creating a family with his 3 new sisters, in a non-romantic way. But it then shuts this down by hinting that the sisters might like him romantically. I have high hopes this doesn't just become another wish fulfillment harem anime, but I would not bet on it, so be it here. Hotai-kun's is about to collapse. I'm not even sure what's going on, but I'll try my best to explain the plot. So our MC's parents died, leaving him to take care of his 10-year-old sister. After being passed around among relatives, he moves back to his hometown to live with his aunt. But his school life is basically non-existent as he spends all his time taking care of his little sister. This seems really sweet, but he might have gone a little overboard as his sister has become jealous of almost any girl he hangs out with. Although, there's one exception, a childhood friend who moves back. Just one problem, the MC isn't a big fan because back when they were young, she destroyed their garden and then just vanished. Not only that, but he has moved on and has developed crush on one of his classmates. But you see, the childhood friend is well versed in romance anime and is prepared not to lose like the many before her. This results in one of the greatest offense I've ever seen put to television, to the point it's straight up assault and a case needs to be filed. This feels like it's going to be one hell of a ride, but I'm not sure if I can catch up, so I'm going to give it a B tier. The Shy Hero and the Assassin Princesses. This was genuinely really funny. The anime is fairly simple. Our MC is an extremely strong hero who can take down the toughest of foes with ease. He just has one problem. As the title would suggest, he is extremely shy, so has never been able to form a party. All this changes when the Demon Lord sends his daughter to kill the strongest hero, an assassin is paid millions to eliminate the target, and a dominatrix is eager to have the strongest kissing her feet. So all three of them decide to join the hero's party in hopes to kill him before the others. Fortunately for them, our hero has barely interacted with women, so even the slightest of interaction short-circuits him, causing him to faint. This is all the anime needed to have a pretty decent plot. Yet, they added layers to the hero's killers. The Demon Lord's kid just wants to explore the wonderful things outside of her father's castle. The assassin has deep-rooted hatred for the slave trade and is willing to share her wealth to those in need. And the dominatrix just wants to be topped. I didn't say all the layers were good. Yet, I'm still giving this an A tier. Private tutor to the Duke's daughter. The anime does what it says on the tin. Our MC fails a test at some grand royal school. Luckily, the headmaster gives him an opportunity. Become the tutor to some Duke's daughter. With the only problem being, despite having mana, she can't cast spells. I wish there was more to say, but that was about it. The rest of the episode is literally spent with the MC tutoring. This could have been an interesting show if the magic system didn't seem so generic, or at least the MC wasn't so bland. Maybe it got better, but I'm thinking a detail. Betrothed to my sister's ex. I definitely was not the target audience for this. The show felt like it was ripped from the most trashy, tropey webtoon. I think I'm not only a bit too old, but I'm also the wrong gender to enjoy this. So quick summary of the episode. Our MC is a part of a poor noble family, and since somehow she's supposed to be ugly, greatest gaslighting of the season, she does all the chores and lives like a peasant, while her parents only care for her older sister. This abuse is showcased firsthand when they use the MC's birthday as a chance to get her sister married to some big family. Yet one of the rich nobles happens to stumble across our MC and falls in love, although mistakes her for her older sister and requests the older sister's hand in marriage. Fortunately and unfortunately, the sister dies and the MC is sent instead. Now to get to my main issue. The story tries its hardest for me to sympathize with the MC, as she has low self-esteem, yet they also try and paint her as the perfect person, which leaves me in a position where I find it hard to believe her parents thought of her as useless, and I just can't see the noble as a hero. This is just far too trashy for me. Detail. Futuro solo camping. I think I might have found one of the most infuriating characters this season, but in order for you to understand my claim, I'll tell you what the first episode's about. There's this guy who enjoys solo camping, as it gives him time to himself and allows him to relax. Unfortunately, this camping trip is interrupted by the underprepared co-protagonist, who exploits my boy's kindness and hijacks his solo camping. This guy has 100 times more patience than me, because if I was in the same situation, there would have been a news story of a girl dying on a camping trip after being underprepared. Like, the story and plot of the anime are interesting, but I can't stand one of the protagonists, so I can only give it this a C tier. Cultural exchange with a game center girl. It's propaganda issued by the Japanese Migration Department made to brainwash young Japanese men into believing the average British person is a cute enemy waifu who will instantly fall in love with her. I know that sounds like a crazy conspiracy theory, but let me explain the first episode. We follow our MC, who ends up helping a British girl win a Valentine's-themed koala at a claw machine. This causes a bit of a misunderstanding, as the British girl mistakes this as the guy asking her to be her Valentine's. Eventually, this misunderstanding is cleared up, and they continue to hang out in the arcade. What's most interesting is the British girl straight up speaks English, like the shit was a jump scare. Because I assumed they hired an actual British person as her English was top notch and her accent ready to colonize. So the guy pulls out some of his best English in order to communicate with her. I'm fairly certain half the episode is just in English. But why would an anime do this? Surely creating a language barrier only serves to harm the anime's reach. Unless it's a psyop to get young Japanese kids to learn Japanese. You ain't slick, Mr. Japan. But I respect the boldness, so I'm giving it an A tier. Denken no Mogura. This is a very simple anime, so it's probably going to be short. But anyways, the first episode introduces us to two college students who stumble upon the titular character Mogura after having his skull cracked open. Miraculously, he survives. This is because he's banned from the afterlife, so it has made him living as an immortal hermit. I've only watched the first episode, so I'm not sure what else awaits in the anime, but I found it a nice, simple and chill, and there were parts where the anime went crazy, so I'll give it an A tier. With You and the Rain follows our MC and novelist who finds a supposed dog abandoned in a box. To start off, that creature is no dog. It looks more like some fusion between a Shiba Inu, red panda and raccoon. Not to mention it is completely capable of understanding human language. Somehow, the MC seems to believe a dog is this capable. For a second I thought, oh, maybe all animals in this anime just seem weird. But when they walk through a dog park, a guy notices that that creature is no dog, but is too persuaded by MC's beauty to point it out. Anyways, the anime is still really sweet and definitely seems like a really cozy watch. I'll give it a B tier. Gachiakuta. The anime takes place in a dystopian world, a city split in two, the rich and the poor, with its main principle being to throw away all that is deemed filthy or useless. Our MC is a dumpster diver, similar to Iron Pineapple but with actual trash. Somehow, this is a risky job, as the city is very anti-reuse, reduce, recycle. But he does it in order to make ends meet and to repay the man who adopted him. So similar to many great before him, he was an orphan, but unlike the others, he lost his father after he was deemed a murderer and thrown out. To clarify, the city is on a floating island and trash is thrown overboard. The city alone sounds really interesting, and I'd love to spend the series just exploring it. But the anime's first episode has other ideas, as the MC is framed for the murder of his adoptive father, and like all other trash, is thrown away. So it seems like the rest of the anime will be exploring what happens to those thrown away, and maybe even a revenge story, with an added cherry on top being this is animated by Studio Bones. I just have to give it an S tier. Scooped up by an S-rank adventurer. Despite the long name, this was actually good. And I don't mean it was just passable, but like at least from the first episode, it was actually different to the usual slop. The whole episode serves as a really good origin story while still leaving enough blanks for the topic to be revisited. But enough glazing, let me actually get to what the first episode's about. The S-rank who adopted our MC decides to train him, but something's a bit off about her teaching methods. She seems to constantly downplay the MC's achievements. It is hinted that this may be foreshadowing for later when they explain what happened to the MC's village. Moving on, our MC decides to become a white mage and joins the hero's party. Although his support is essential to the hero's party's success, his humbleness caused most members to not realize and appreciate his support. This undervaluing of the MC's ability gets him kicked out. Sure, the idea isn't too unique and it wasn't the best writing, but it was just slightly better than the usual slop, so I have to give it a B tier. Bad Girl. Sir, it appears another Yuri has hit the season, although this one is more of a gag anime than an actual romance. So far, we've been introduced to 3 characters. Someone who is constantly mistaken for being a delinquent due to her natural blonde hair and rough personality, a girl small enough to be legally classified as a midget who is so head over heels in love with her senpai, she tries and fails to be a bad girl, and the senpai in question who is awfully similar to another pink-haired woman and happens to also think of the person in love with them as nothing more than a dog. Simple sweet anime that might put a smile on your face. Yuri tier. Ruri rocks. Maybe it's because I'm not into archaeology. Maybe it's because I don't have experience with an annoying little sister. Cause damn, this shit was a pain to get through. The concept is simple. Some girl meets a uni student who studies archaeology or something, and they both decide to look into interesting rocks together. But damn is this little girl annoying as hell. It's been a long time since I've wanted to punt a fictional child. Maybe if you interact you'll enjoy this one, but I'm giving it a D tier. Nugitashi the animation, probably the best issue since interspecies reviewers. The anime takes place on an island where perverts and gooners reign supreme, where engaging in adult wrestling is the norm and depravity is on the regular. People can have coitus with whomever, whenever, however. This is not a new concept to me as I am a fan of the Mizuri Kaila instead of cultured manga, but this anime adds an interesting twist. Our MC and his little sister are not too fond of the rampant intercourse that dominates this island. Unfortunately, this puts them in trouble, as it is mandated by law that all must participate regardless of their beliefs. They even put a couple who refuse to do the bed racing with anyone but their partner on some kind of forced penetration style execution. So it's up to our MC to put an end to this depravity. Despite this looking to be yet another edgy anime, I assure you it's actually really good. For one, the animation is really impressive, especially when you consider the animators were most likely doing it one-handed. The humor, despite all being sex jokes, is still really funny. The show is more of an action comedy than an ecchi, so if you're into anime like Interspecies Reviews, you'll enjoy this. Personally, I'm giving it an A tier. City the animation. This is a kind of a hard one to explain. It's an adaptation of a manga by the same author as Nichijou, so hopefully that gives you an idea of what you're getting into. For those who have not watched Nichijou, what are you doing? Finish this video and go watch it. But to attempt to give an idea of what the anime is about, it's kind of like a compilation of random and insane shit happening in a slice of life setting. This is really hard to explain, but I assure you it's an A tier. Ugly Mug Epic Fighter. I quickly dismissed this one thinking it would be Ugly Bastard Tag the Isekai, where there's some self-insert ugly guy who somehow gets a harem of beautiful women. So I felt really bad when the episode opened up with the MC commentating on how society is very quick to discriminate on people who do not fit the rigid and unrealistic beauty standards. He laments on how he's always had to put extra work compared to others because everyone expects the worst from ugly people. Yet despite that, he was still able to build a successful career and walk past the discrimination, until he is falsely accused of groping a pretty girl. Despite the fact that at the time it was impossible for him to do it, and despite people who know him know he would never, he still lost the case and had to pay a hefty fine. After this, he loses all faith in humanity and becomes a shut-in. The worst part is, this is very much true. Society really doesn't care about people's personality. What's more important is what's on the outside. This simple moral already puts it heaps above any isekai slop, but it doesn't end there, as the anime seems to have found a way to utilize the OP isekai protagonist genre to amplify the lesson. One day while browsing a forum, he finds instructions on how to get transported into another world. Having nothing left to lose, he follows them. On his laptop, a prompt appears, asking if he would like to adjust his look stats. As a joke, he puts negative 255. Turns out by lowering his looks, he got extra points to spend on other stats. This, combined with a bunch of other nerfs he applied to himself, made him a god when he woke up in the other world. Unfortunately, his party members, others who were also isekai, only seem to give him looks of pity or disgust. I'm really fascinated to see the other ways this anime tackles its issues, so I'm giving it an A tier. Nine Ruler's Crown. The start of the episode is interesting. They show the ending to an in-universe anime that was made to boost tourism in the city, but failed due to being generic and badly written. Ironic, as the anime is also kinda generic, but hopefully not badly written. It's really hard to get a feel for the anime from its first episode, as it decides, rather than explain the concept to hook a viewer, it leaves crumbs for a mystery. This is an okay way of approaching a first episode, but it does leave me with very little to talk about. The characters also do not give much to talk about. This suffers from the anime sickness where the MC is a dark-haired kid who's laid back while some of the rest of the cast is female, save for one male best friend. Due to how bland the first episode was, I really struggled to find reason to watch the rest of the series, so I'm giving it a C tier. Night of the Living Cat. The anime depicts a world, no, a nightmare, for both dog lovers and cat lovers. After careful breeding, humanity created the perfect cat. By those who developed the virus that has passed from cat to human through touch, those infected turning into cats. The anime opens up with our MCs running away from a herd of cats. Unfortunately, one of them don't make it. It then takes us back in time to just before this catastrophe, where we find out one of our MCs had lost all their memories except extensive knowledge on cats. Luckily, he's brought in by the other MC and his brother, as they run a cat cafe. But all nice things must come to an end. Despite the silly idea, the anime takes itself 100% seriously, and there seems to already be traces of some mystery. If not to look at cute cats, then surely the humor of the situation would get you to watch this anime. I give it a B tier. From Matt's Kitchen. The first episode shows a problem faced by a lot of people, but is hardly talked about. The MC is a math genius and top of his school. He is so good he even got a scholarship. You see, he's always been good at maths and enjoyed it ever since he was little. Until, while writing a test for a maths Olympiad, he realized he can't do it. At that moment, he realized that everyone around him are leagues above him. He leaves the test paper blank. Obviously, this gets him in major trouble. Why would he not attempt? Why would he waste his talent? He was so gifted. This is where the problem lies. What I suspect the animal will try and tackle. Speaking as a former gifted child, someone who just understood maths and science, I can relate to what he's feeling. I too was in a situation where I realized I'm not cut out for this. Not because I lack the skills or talent, but because I lack the motivation. I realized, compared to my peers, I was an imposter who was simply doing what would get him the best response from those around him. The people around me were the real geniuses. They were the ones who actually wanted to make breakthroughs in science. I and our MC are just people who liked and happened to be good at maths. But enough about me, back to the anime. It's discovered by some top chef, the MC has some talent in cooking. Although, the MC isn't so sure on that, so the guy puts it to the test and the episode ends. To some, they may look at the anime and dismiss the MC as an ungrateful brat who is simply a waste of talent. Personally, I heavily relate to him, and sit eager to watch his journey. A tier. Hotel and Humans. Seems like this will be more episodic, with each episode telling a tale from a hotel. But this is no ordinary hotel. It's a place made to serve the worst of the worst, killers and murderers. It is a hotel for assassins, with two people, the concierges, ready to fulfill any of their guest requests. This first episode didn't actually open up with any info on the hotel. Rather, we see a guy who used to work for a Yakuza group, but after changing leader, is now being hunted by the group. You see, the former leader met the guy when he and his little sister were merely products to be sold. So, the leader gave the guy a gun and said, either kill yourself or kill your sister. He picks the gun and points it at the leader. This leads the leader to train him into an assassin, while providing his sister with a good life until she's 20. The new leader was not a fan of this and wanted to kill him and his sister. Fortunately, he remembers the hotel, a hotel for inhumans, who demonstrate their skill by killing the new leader and locating the tombstone of the guy's sister. This one story is already better than some anime this season, so I have high hopes for the rest of the series. B tier. Turkey. I thought the isekai genre was dying. I thought they ran out of ideas. I was wrong. For the whole episode, this anime masqueraded as one of those sports animes with cute girls. I was a fool to believe this was just a ploy by Big Bowling to get weaves into bowling. But alas, I've been tricked and bamboozled, as the tags finally made sense. The episode ends with them getting transported to another world. I genuinely have no idea where this is going. At first, it simply introduces us to some bowling club that failed to win at the last second. Most of the members were chill with this, as they joined the club to have fun. But one member is absolutely discombobulated at the idea that some people don't derive joy from a trophy being handed to them. So this member decides to quit, but the leader feels bad, so tries to convince her to stay through a bowling match. After the captain loses, this is where they are whisked away due to some bowling ball being struck by lightning, and the episode ends. I really have no idea what to say. The writing didn't seem too bad, so I guess B tier? Kamitsubaki, City Under Construction. There's a lot happening in this episode, so I'm gonna try my best to explain it all. 7 years ago, there was some disaster that happened. The exact details have not been revealed, but from what I can gather, one of its biggest effects seemed to be the destruction of Earth's atmosphere, as it is mentioned that there is some shield meant to protect against harmful UV rays. There's also two other weird things going on, although I'm not sure if they are related to the disaster. First, there was a sudden appearance of monsters called Tesseractors that seem to spawn from humans who've let their negative emotions take over. Second, there are 5 girls called Witchlings, who seem to be able to not only summon familiars with the special powers to fight for them, but they also have the unique ability to purify souls of the Tesseracts with their singing. With that out of the way, I can get to my comments on the first episode. I like the idea that the anime is able to throw you into a brand new world without any hand holding. I also like the bold decision to have all the characters in CGI. It gives the anime a unique look and allows it to stand out against the usual generic anime style. Although it is very much a musical and my ass has no ear for music, as the most music I ever listen to are video game OC and royalty free music playing in the background of YouTube videos. So this is only going to be an A tier for me. Harmony of male feel is what your mother gives you when she says we have Bocchi the Rock at home. That's kinda it. A girl with social anxiety joins a music group, but far less funny, and it's a cappella. Maybe you'll be into the more grounded take, but I see no purpose of watching this D tier. April showers bring May flowers, a romance anime where the quote-unquote ugly girl gets with the most popular guy in the class. Shit like this is always funny, cause the girl is never actually ugly, but ends up just being shy and wears glasses. But anyways, the main character is an extreme introvert with some serious low self-esteem. Paired with her ability to overthink as much improbable scenarios as the Flash can think in an attosecond, leaves her in a position of having no friends and a grim high school future. This all changes when she is noticed by an extreme popular guy in her class while she was changing flowers and decided to put one in her hair. She thinks this is the end of her social life, that the guy is just a douche who will make fun of her. But she was also wrong. The guy's actually extremely kind and caring. I can't wait to see the MC finally realize that maybe she should hold herself to a higher level. B tier. Takapi's original sin. Man, I knew this one was going to be dark, but fuck. I've never seen abuse depicted in such a real way. This is despite the anime having a silly octopus-like alien. If anything, the silliness and brightness of Takapi only serves to make the darker parts even darker. But let me explain the first episode. So, Takapi is an alien sent to Earth to spread happiness. Their first customer is our MC, a 4th grader with an absent father and a prostitute mother, who has become a victim to intense bullying spearheaded by one girl. At first, you may think Takapi's inclusion would only serve to downplay the serious topics being discussed, but they give an interesting viewpoint into abuse. You see, Takapi is very naive and does not seem to fully grasp the severity of the situation. Yet they still try and help by giving fun gadgets and awesome advice such as communication is key. What you end up noticing is Takapi's naive attempts to help are far too similar to help that is actually given. It showcases how bad we are at sympathizing and understanding the true complexities of depression and abuse. Although yes, the people Takapi is meant to be making fun of do want to help, they oftentimes do not help. Another reason Takapi's inclusion does not diminish the severity of abuse is due to how real the abuse is depicted. Not once in the anime is it ever explicitly stated that the MC is being abused, but it is near constantly being showed. Whether it be through their meek manner or their raggedy clothes, the sign of abuse and neglect are constantly shoved in your face. The show also doesn't take it the easy route out by villainizing the MC's bully, as later in the episode, we found out that the bully is trying to fix her own fucked up home life, as her father is openly cheating on her mother by buying the MC's mother's escort services. Now her mother is letting all the anger out on her daughter. So I don't think one can simply villainize any of the characters, which makes sense, as in reality, oftentimes there is no one supervillain who is responsible for all the evil in the world. Although this anime will make you cry, I still urge you to watch it as it's the top anime of the season, S tier. And with that, here's a tier list of almost every new anime this season. If you enjoyed, please like and subscribe. If you disagree with something I said, or later episodes disprove one of my points, please leave a comment down below.